Good evening. Before we get started, I would like to review a few housekeeping rules and announcements. Tonight's event will be live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. You may click on the link in the chat box and watch this on YouTube and select the chat feature to ask questions. Or you can watch us live on Facebook with the Columbus Division of Police, the City of Columbus, or the Department of Public Safety's Facebook pages. My name is Tracy Bell Thomas, and I am the first Vice President of Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Sigma Omega Chapter here in Columbus, Ohio. And I would like to recognize the following individuals. If you are present, please stand as your names are called. Andrew Ginther, Mayor of the City of Columbus. Robert Clark, Director of Public Safety, City of Columbus. City Council President Shannon Harden. City Council President Pro Tempore Elizabeth Brown. Council Member Nicholas Bankston. Council Member Lourdes Barriso de Padilla. Council Member Rob Dorans, Council Member Shayla Favor, and Council Member Emmanuel Remy. President of The Ohio State University, Christina Johnson. Director of Public Safety, Monica Mull, The Ohio State University. Lieutenant Colonel Marla Gaskill, and Lieutenant Colonel Charles Jones. And finally, Hocking College and Vice President of NOBLE, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Region 4, Chief Tiffany Timms Inskeep. Thank you. At this time, we will be greeted by the President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated's Alpha Sigma Omega Chapter, Ms. Valerie Tarver.
Good evening and welcome to our program. My name is Valerie Tarver and I am the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Sigma Omega Chapter. Our chapter was chartered on October 9th, 1930, and for over 91 years, we have led the charge of service to all mankind in the local Columbus community. To be supreme in service to all mankind has been a motivating force behind Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority since our founding on January 15, 1908, 114 years ago. In that spirit, Alpha Kappa Alpha women have led the charge for social justice, equal opportunities, and fairness. Our AKA's LEAD program focuses on learning, empowering, advocating, deciding on programs and focuses that help us improve legislative issues, public policy, social justice concerns that are critical to Black women and our larger community. And this evening, we're hoping to pave the way with an open discussion as our partners in the community with the various police departments join us in discussing how we can actually improve our community. And with this, I will turn you over to Ms. Karen Carey, our chair of our Connections and Social Acting Committee, as we have an opportunity to hear from our esteemed panel. Thank you.
Good evening. As our president said, I am Karen Carey, the Connection and Social Action Chair. So why are we here? The purpose of why we are here. Law enforcement was designed to promote public safety by protecting and serving the people in communities in which they reside. However, there is a huge gap in relationships of mutual trust between law enforcement agencies and the communities in which they serve. Our nation continues to grapple with a variety of social justice issues concerning police reform. It is important now more than ever to bridge this gap by building trust and relationships between the two to ensure that our communities are desired places to reside, work, and to raise a family in their communities. That is why we have brought you a view from the blue. Now, and I will start off by saying that we had to shift. Our moderator, as you can see, if you see the picture, you see a young man up there, Dr. Javar Godfrey. He is stuck in Florida and has been trying to get out for the past 2 days. I'm not quite sure what has caused the shortage of the flights to get out. And so we have with us Judge Lachelle Stroud, who is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Sigma Omega Chapter. Judge Stroud is a licensed attorney for nearly 2 decades. She serves as an attorney of the magistrate prior to her election as a judge in Franklin County. She is an active member in her community where she strives to serve others or all mankind. She is also, once, like I said, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Alpha Sigma Omega. So what we have here is a panelist of chief of police. And I might say that you all look beautiful. You all look beautiful. We have Chief Elaine Bryan of the Columbus Division of Police, who was just sworn in. We have Colonel and Superintendent Richard Fambro of the Ohio State Highway Patrol. And we have Chief Kimberly Spears McNatt of the Ohio State University. And let me just say, she is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. They will get further into details as throughout the conversation. And so I will turn it over to you all.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing out there? Name is Dr. Godfrey. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it, I got stuck. But I wanted to make sure that I called and told you guys how important this day was to me. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I went to Independence High School. I high, 99, class of 99. Anybody? Okay. Johnson Park Middle School. Used to call it junior prison. Johnson Park. And so I'm very vested in the community there. And I really, really, really want to come and help bridge gaps. And that's what this night is about, bridging the gaps between the community and law enforcement. And that's a big thing, you guys. I mean, they say a lot of times you are not alone, but at times both sides feel alone. So why not bring them together? And who better to do it? Who better to do it than a lady that's going to help y'all out tonight? Judge Stroud. Now, see, some of y'all know Judge Stroud, and some of y'all know Judge Stroud, right? She's not playing about this bridging this gap. And see, this event is just going to continue to gain steam until we inside your community, all of us together. And so I want to make sure the last thing I say is for you to try to pick up a strategy for struggle. And so a strategy for struggle is something you already plot before it happens. So a lot of people get upset really quick. Violence happens really quick. Anger happens really quick. But what's your plan? Do you have it really quick? Huh? Somebody make you upset right now, what you gonna do? Strategy for struggle. So start to develop that. But tonight, on this special night, bridge some gaps, shake some hands, smile at somebody. Tell them their outfit look nice. Peace.
Well, good evening again, everyone. We are so excited to engage in this conversation. Our hope and our desire is that this will be an intimate conversation amongst us where the panelists are free to be transparent and share so that we can really hear from them what it feels like to walk in their shoes and be able to get an inside perspective of what they go through on a day-to-day basis. So we will get right into it. I'm curious to hear from you all what led you to a career in law enforcement. Was it like a lifelong dream? I know I always wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was 5 years old. Does that resonate with any of you? Or did your family lead you to law enforcement? Or what exactly led you to a career in law enforcement?
Well, is this thing on? Can you hear me? This is going to be an interesting story. So I actually did not have dreams to be a law enforcement officer. I came on the job as a bet. Someone told me that I couldn't do it, and I told them I bet I can. So here I am 20 plus years later, and I am, very happy, and I know that this was the career that I was supposed to have. I came in as a bet, but the minute that I started the police academy, it felt like a home away from home, and I knew it was a calling for me, and I knew that I would be very happy in this profession to be a public servant.
So did you patrol and work in the streets?
Started off as a student police officer, became a police officer, citywide patrol, had an opportunity to go to a lot of different bureaus. I will tell you, for my career path, I worked somewhere different every 2 years. I made it a point to kind of move around and learn different parts of the department, and I think that really gave me the edge when it came time to not only test to be promoted, but to also take a challenge such as this, to be the chief of police for Columbus.
Well, thank you for accepting that bet in the call. We are so fortunate that you won the bet. Colonel Fambro, what about you? I saw your face light up when I asked the question.
Proud Columbus Public Schools product. So born and raised. And actually, to be honest, I wanted to be an attorney. And one thing led to another. I was a student at OSU. I was working full-time job and got put on academic probation and was trying to figure out what was going to be next. I knew that everything that I did on my rudimentary Gantt chart had to do with working with people. And I heard an advertisement for the Columbus Division of Police, believe it or not, and drove down to the City Safety Building over on Marconi and got off the elevator and said, man, I don't know that I can police the communities that I grew up in. So jumped back on the elevator before the doors closed and happened to be talking to a friend several weeks later that was part of the Highway Patrol. And I'd really never even seen a trooper other than seeing them at the fair when I was sneaking in over the fence. But one thing led to another, and he pitched this organization to me, and I knew right away the ability to work independently, to take care of yourself, be physically fit, and to go back and do something that few people get the opportunity to do. And once I joined, I knew it was for me. And I had a lot of mentors along the way that invested in me to help me achieve various opportunities within the agency. So that's how I came.
I have a similar story as Chief Bryant. So I am a 1993 The Ohio State University graduate. So after I graduated, I was working for people who graduated from OSU, traffic and parking. Traffic and parking was the agency or the entity at the university where you had to come if your vehicle had been impounded or if you had to pay some parking tickets. So I was responsible for the customer service and dealing with individuals who had to come get their vehicle. In addition to that, I was also a cashier at the Kroger's at 7th and High. Okay? So I think people know that area and they know the store. So while working at Traffic and Parking, my best friend at the time, Kathy Emerson Johnson, we were both working at Traffic and Parking, and there was an officer by the name of Scott Tipton who would make his rounds. He was an OSU police officer, and he would come over and check on us because he knew we had to deal with people who had to pay parking tickets or get their car impounded. And he had mentioned to Kathy and I that, had you ever thought about going into law enforcement? And Kathy and I were both like, no. She is from Dayton, Ohio. My hometown is Akron, Ohio. And at the time, all I knew about law enforcement was Charlie's Angels. So I was just like, no. And so each time he would come and check on us and say, I really think you two would do really well in law enforcement. And we were just like, no. And so he started telling us the benefits each time, the community engagement piece, serving the public, and each time he would just drop little words of wisdom. And so it was a Friday he had stopped by, and it was a Friday that Kathy and I had just got paid. And so we were looking at our checks and realized, like, we got to figure something else out. And so he started talking, and he was telling us all about the benefits. And he said 401k. I thought he said $400, and I was like, where do we sign up at? So that was my introduction into law enforcement. Similar to Chief Bryant, Kathy and I were both city girls. And so for us to go to the police academy, to be on the driving range, you know, firearms, DT, it was like a challenge. And each step that we progressed, we were like, we can do this. And so, Lord and behold, we completed the academy and we graduated. And so, two women who probably wasn't the ideal for law enforcement, we were able to get on the House at University Police Division.
So, were any of you discouraged by family or friends and tried to get you to shy away from a career in law enforcement, Chief Bryant?
Yes. So, you know, as you're growing up and you know, I grew up in a very urban neighborhood, and a lot of my friends were into different things. And so when they found out that I was going to be law enforcement, I stopped getting invited to a lot of parties. I stopped getting invited to a lot of things. And even a couple of my family members kind of shied away from me a little bit, but I was okay with it. I knew that this is what I wanted to do once I started the police academy.
So did any of you, did either of you experience any changes in your close relationships or put a strain on your relationships?
No, my mom cried, though, because I was afraid of the police growing up. She replaced a lot of screens. Anytime I heard sirens, I would run home and dive through the screen. But she cried when I told her I was going to join the Highway Patrol. So, but she's good now. And you know, we all got family that you have to shy away from. And that's not a proud moment, but you understand that when you take this step, it's different. And you have to accept that some of the relationships that you have, while you want them to be as genuine and as positive as they can be, sometimes you have to take a step away. Regulations that promulgate what it means to be in this position. So.
I think for me, because me and my best friend were in it together, I had that support. But my parents were definitely worried. You know, my mom was concerned, are you going to be safe? Are you well trained? And so just reassuring, you know, my parents, my father had a talk with my first FTO, my field training officer, and told him don't let nothing happen to her. And so just that overprotective, you know, father and mother, they were just really concerned about.
Would you all have those same fears or concerns if one of your children decided to go into law enforcement as a career? What would your thoughts be? And if we can make sure that we speak directly into the microphone.
My son doesn't like rules, so he's an entrepreneur and likes to make money, and this is, you know, you don't go into this for money. So no, I wouldn't discourage him. I asked him, you know, if it was something he would consider, and I never pressured him. You have to want to do this. It's a lifestyle change. And for him, it wasn't for him. He's in the business community, so. Would
you share with us what exactly does the Ohio State, the patrol, for the Highway Patrol, what jurisdiction do you have? What does that entail for the viewers who are watching who are unsure what exactly that means?
Sure, we have statewide jurisdiction on all state-owned or leased properties. Primarily, we patrol the highways, but we come into cities and assist with anything that the city may need to collaborate with us on, or we need to collaborate with them. OSU, we work OSU football games, but primarily traffic enforcement. But troopers contact about 1.2 million people each year by way of traffic stops. And when you think about being a force multiplier, we want to interdict drugs and bad people before they get to your cities. And we're really good at that. We've got a great group of people that are committed to doing that, and we're all in.
So what type of interaction, if any, would you have with Chief Bryant? You shared for Chief Spears McNatt, it would be for the OSU games, which we're all familiar with. What type of interaction would you have with Chief Bryant and CPD?
do all kinds of initiatives. We did an initiative here on the east side here several months ago. You don't see troopers every day because we're out on the highways and byways, but when you see troopers come into your neighborhoods, we have a motto, and it's service with respect. We come in and we assist, whether it's traffic enforcement or we have people on plainclothes details, we have people that protect the governor, we have people that are actually involved in task force operations. So we're a multifaceted force multiplier, not just for the cities, but township departments and smaller agencies that may not have the resources. And what we bring to bear are all of those resources when we come. We have an aviation unit, motorcycle unit, all kinds of units that give people job redesign opportunities. And I will say that we are recruiting. We need women and minorities, so I'll leave that for later, ma'am.
Chief Spears McNatt and Chief Bryant, what type of interactions do your agencies have between each other?
Well, I will tell you that we work very closely with Ohio State University and the officers, because obviously we know that with crime, it does not have any boundaries. Just like the Colonel said, we have to make sure that we are working very closely to not only prevent crime, but to solve cases, and even with the community interaction. So we have a joint effort where we have actually Ohio State University officers that work with Columbus Police, and they patrol together in that particular neighborhood to prevent crime. So we work very closely with them. I know you can add to that.
So I agree with Chief Bryant. We have a really good working relationship, and probably a day doesn't go by where we're not in constant contact with Columbus Police Division or someone from her leadership team. We are a city within a city, and we do sit in the city of Columbus. And so what impacts the city impacts Ohio State, and what impacts Ohio State impacts the city. And so with us having students who live in a university district, having that relationship with Columbus Police Division when something may occur, that for them to connect with us so we can provide the resources needed, for that student, and also being able to make sure that we're providing a safe environment. So we need each other, and we work really well together. And from the assignment that Chief Bryant was mentioning, the Joint Patrol, because we do have over 60,000 students, and they live all throughout the city, and so it's important that we have that relationship.
One more example. What people may not realize is just 3 months ago, the collaboration between these three agencies to deal with the campus crime issues that were pervasive, the Highway Patrol was intricately involved in working that detail, because everybody's got limited resources. And I think the thing that we realize as a profession is that we can't work in silos. We have to be collaborative in spirit, and that's critically important to all three agencies. And as Chief said, it's a city within a city. We are a statewide agency, but we have a contingent here that is able to be a force multiplier for everyone.
And you talked briefly about your hiring. If you could share with us, what challenges do you face in hiring, and what exactly is your plan when you say that you're looking to hire right now?
We are always recruiting. When it comes to the Highway Patrol, one of the biggest challenges right now is the recruitment and retention. With everything that's happened, and just with how you start classes of people, an average Highway Patrol class might be 70 people. So if you imagine we're starting 2 classes each year, those people are on the same trajectory to retire at some point. So you can plan for what you need to replenish those that may walk out of the door. One of the other issues is pay right now. I mean, we are not as well paid as some of the municipal agencies. But we bring a lot of other things to the table that are intangible, such as take-home cars. We pay for all of your dry cleaning. There are all kinds of things that are part of that package that we try to get people to think about outside of the pay issue. They're well paid, but we've fallen behind a little.
Would either of you like to put in a plug for your hiring?
Yeah, we're hiring as well. we are very much hiring, and we pay our officers well, but even more importantly, we treat our officers well. So I just want to put that out there and let them know that anybody that's interested in joining Columbus Division of Police, you can go on the website. We're hiring. We're also in the process of doing laterals. So we're looking for other agencies and officers might be interested in coming to the Columbus Division of Police. So we know how important that is as well.
So in addition, we are also hiring. We are also hiring, but in all seriousness, that is probably one of the most important and critical decisions that we make. The officers that we recruit, the officers that we hire, and the officers that we retain shapes the culture of your agency. At Ohio State University Police Division, we have a different style of policing. Our culture is based around our core values of integrity, diversity, service, innovation, and respect. And so when an applicant comes through the door, I'm looking to see if they can embrace those core values. And will they be able to be successful at our agency? That is what our community is asking for. That is what our students are asking for. And so those are the things that I'm looking. And so if you can resonate with those qualities of innovation, diversity, integrity, service, and respect, come see me. We're hiring.
So do you believe that your current team of officers reflects the communities in which you all serve?
I would say absolutely. In 2020, Columbus Dispatch did a news article, and we were one of the leading agencies as related to diversity, but we're not stopping there. Ohio State is a very diverse campus when you think about nationality, culture, religion, and background. So it's imperative that our agency reflects our community, and that is what we're striving for. I'm very proud to say that we are one of the few agencies currently right now that has 3 women in leadership. My boss is Director Monica Moe, who's a Director of Public Safety. I currently serve as the Chief of Police. Deputy Tracy Hahn, and we just promoted Captain Eric Whiteside. So it's rare that you can have 3 women in a leadership position, and so we are moving forward. We embrace diversity and inclusion, and we want to make sure that our agency represents that.
So we have work to do. We have over 1,900 sworn officers, and we do need more diversity. We also, not just in race, but in gender as well. So we're looking to hire more women. We're looking to hire we want a police department that reflects the community in which we serve. And as Columbus continues to grow and as the different communities continue to grow, we want to make sure that we're recruiting in those respective communities, because we want to bring people onto the division that grew up in the city of Columbus, that know the city of Columbus, that would be responsive to its residents, that have parents and mothers and brothers and sisters and friends that are from Columbus. So it's important that we go out and we actually we recruit the members, the residents that live here. But it's also equally important, if they aren't from here, that we also make sure that the officers that we do hire learn about their community, and they should not be meeting residents for the first time on a call for service. That's why we have programs like our community immersion program, where the officers get an opportunity to actually go out and do community service well before they even get to do any type of call for service. So we do know that we have work to do in regards to our diversity. We're working on it. I think that I'm a good first start. First Assistant Chief Potts, she's a good first start. We're there. We're working towards that. We've just promoted another female deputy chief, Deputy Chief Weiner. So we're heading in the right direction, but we do have work to do.
Received a lot of questions in regards to whether you believe that CPD should include criteria that new officers or even the current officers actually reside in Columbus. And you sort of just touched on that, but if you could expand on your thoughts.
This is my thoughts on that, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I believe that officers should have a right to really live where they want to live, and I will tell you why. I think that it's great that officers live in the city, and I think that you will have a mixture. There will be officers that live in the city, officers that were born and raised here, and they love it. But you also have to respect the fact that there are going to be some officers that don't necessarily live here or weren't raised here. That doesn't mean that they cannot be police officers here and have respect for the residents in the community. But sometimes it's difficult for officers to live in a community where they are arresting people, where they're getting into confrontations with people, where they're having issues with people, and then they're sending their children to school with their children, or they're out in the grocery store and they run into someone that they just arrested. Sometimes that's an uncomfortable situation for officers. So I respect officers that may not necessarily make the decision to live in the city, but I do think it's equally important that they spend as much time as they can talking to the residents, doing community service, and actually ingraining themselves in the city in which they work.
And when you say community service and that criteria, what exactly does that mean? You require of CPD officers to engage in community service? Could you expand on that?
Well, through our community immersion program, they do have to do community service. They actually work with residents and they come up with a project that they work on together. So we do require that. We also have a lot of programs that we're bringing to the city, and some that are already here. Our TAPS program, Teens in Police, we work with the youth. We're also going to be bringing brotherhood and sisterhood. We're going to be mentoring our young people, making sure that they're able to get into college, or if the college is not for everyone, they're able to get a trade skill to be able to make themselves employable. So we want to make sure that we're doing those type of things. Officers volunteer all the time, so it's not just necessarily something that we're checking the box on, but something that they may be interested in. We're talking about bringing our police athletic league back. We know a lot of officers are going to be interested in being a part of that program as well too. Structured sports with our youth, that's all a part of our intervention program. So it varies. We have we brought a senior Cupid dance that we did with our seniors. So a lot of officers may want to volunteer in that way. So we open it up to officers and give them many opportunities to be able to be involved in their community, and not just when they're on the clock or for calls for service.
Colonel Fambro, you wanted to say something?
We're statewide, so we serve a very diverse populace, and when it comes to diversity and inclusion, it's equally important. I philosophically believe, especially within our agency, we're more alike than we are different. And you have to be courageous enough to have conversations about uncomfortable subjects, not because you're trying to be controversial, but you're trying to understand. And the more you understand, the better the situation is going forward. And I'm happy that, when I came in as superintendent in 2019, we actually started a diversity and inclusion initiative well before all of the unrest and the controversy that surrounded the death of George Floyd. And, I told all of the people within the Highway Patrol, whether you were sworn or professional staff, which is non-sworn personnel, that I'm willing to have those conversations, because it has to start with changing a culture or a belief that you can change that culture. It starts with me. And being courageous enough to address that and have those conversations, we can't shy away from those types of challenges, because if you want to change or you want to promote growth, you have to start with yourself.
So how exactly do we bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community? We all know that there's distrust, sometimes fear between certain communities and law enforcement. What do you all see as your plan, or how will you tackle that issue? How do we bridge this gap?
So for me, I think that a big part of it is what we're doing now. You have to have conversations. You cannot shy away, like the Colonel said, you can't shy away from any topic. You have to be transparent, and you have to go out in the community. So a lot of times what you'll see is officers that you may think are shut off or closed off to conversation, but sometimes those officers are really afraid to have conversations because they don't know how they're being perceived, or they don't know what's going to be said about them. So I think that goes both ways. When we have our conversations with the students at Ohio State, we always say, hey, when you see an officer, approach them, ask them how their day's going. Don't be afraid to have that conversation. So I think having conversations is extremely important. Having community forums, being transparent and open, including the community in any type of events or any type of programs that you're going to do. I think that we have to work together collectively. And the really important part is they should not see officers for the first time on calls for service. It is really important that officers have self-initiated contact with citizens, with residents, with business owners, get involved in their community, because that is how they're going to be seen different. We have to humanize our badge. We have to make sure that we're seen not as officers who go home at the end of the night, plug ourselves in, and hang ourselves up on a hanger. We're not that. We're mothers, we're brothers, we're sisters. We have problems. We have problems in our family. We have children that are going through different struggles. We have mothers that are aging. We go through the same issues that everyone else go through. And I think that in order for us to be able to bridge that gap, we have to allow the residents, the citizens, to be able to see us as humans and know that we're approachable and know that we are public servants and we're here for them. But at the same time, I challenge the residents to approach us, have conversations with us, and know that if you see an officer that's straight-faced, understand that officer may have just come from a run where they saw a child ejected from a car, or they may have seen a murdered person. They are not always necessarily upset. Sometimes they're compartmentalizing some of the things that they're going through. So officer wellness is extremely important to us, and we're making sure that we're taking care of our officers, but we challenge our residents to kind of be thoughtful in that process as well, too.
I couldn't agree more with what Chief Bryan and Colonel Frambo said. That community engagement and peace is humanizing law enforcement. There is a lot of good officers. This is truly a noble profession. We are moms, we are dads, we are brothers, we are sisters. We eat Thanksgiving dinner. We shop at Walmart, at Target. We watch Netflix. And so really getting people to see us, yet humanized, seeing us as people, and having that conversation where, like you said, when they're not seeing us for the first time on a call for service, because a lot of times when law enforcement are called, unfortunately we see people at their worst. And they're dealing with a lot at that time. And so really starting to have those conversations. We see people at church, and I'm sitting here seeing this sea of pink and green in front of me, and it just made me think about community service. And I'm telling my years of being at Ohio State, and so if you probably pledged to any Greek organization, and you had a dance at the Ohio Union, I was there and I worked it. And so I see this across that, for me, that was a part of community engagement, you know, interacting with the student organizations. Started the school year, it's not uncommon to see me or my command staff out at the student involvement fair, you know, in the dorms. Each year at Ohio State, we get a new group of students, and so we have to continue to have that in community engagement because our population is changing, and we want to have that positive relationship.
So I heard you say, Chief Bryant, to when you see an officer in public, to just go up to the officer and speak to the officer. I grew up here in Columbus in the Linden area. I've never heard anyone say, just walk up to an officer. It's like foreign to me sitting here as an adult. So I'm like, is that what we should tell our children? Like, you all really tell your children to just walk up to an officer that you see on the street?
That's the problem, yeah.
Those stigmas and those stereotypes dog this profession. And we are just regular people who have chosen a career path to do something that's community-based. And it's a passion. I don't consider this work. I can't believe I get paid to do it, to be honest. I love what I do. And it's just something that's a part of who you are and part of your DNA. And for me, I didn't change once I became a trooper. You know, I'm still the same person. People within the organization that have seen me rise up through the ranks will tell you I have not changed. Rank is not what this is about. It's about being human and understanding that in order to lead people, and this is about leadership, you have to be able to connect. And connecting is being human. We all have problems.
So I will tell you, for me, coming from the department that I came from, that was normal. So we were very engaged with the community, and I will tell you, just talking to the officers here and getting an opportunity to meet them, they're very ready and open for that. It is different. It's a cultural change. I think it starts with leadership. You know how when you were little, that your mom would say, "Do as I say, not as I do." No, I'm not going to ask my officer to do anything that I'm not willing to do. Let's start there. I'm out in the community. I go to community events. I'm going to forums. I'm speaking. I expect them to do the same thing, and I want them to embrace the community. And part of that is just watching their leadership from the top down. All of us are held accountable on the same plane, on the same level. I don't expect anything less from them than I'm willing to give. So you ask, is that different? It is different. But that is something that we want to make sure that we make the norm here. We want people to be comfortable going up to officers. We want the officers to be comfortable getting out the car and shooting a basketball when they see neighborhood kids playing. We want them to be able to approach Miss Johnson on her porch and ask her how her day is going. We want that to be normal. And part of that is getting parents to understand that they're really a big part of this. There's so many times that I've been somewhere and I will hear a parent say, "You better do it or I'm going to tell that officer to arrest you." Now they're creating fear in that child instead of saying, "Hey, this officer is here to help you. Hey, look at this officer, come talk to this officer, let's take a picture." They're saying this officer is going to arrest you. So we have to stop that too. We have to stop perpetuating and making officers bad guys and start making them the ones that if you're in trouble, to see that uniform, that's the person you can go to for help.
Okay, and we really want some tangible takeaways. What can we do to bridge this gap? So I hear you say, tell our children to walk up to officers, approach officers. When they're here, it's not always something negative. Let's talk about the positives that you all are doing. What other types of conversations? Because I believe that it's really important if we're going to change this narrative that we start with our children and go to the youth first so that we can help them and change the narrative around law enforcement. What else can we do? What else can we say? What types of conversations do you all have with your children about law enforcement?
Positive. When it comes to this particular subject matter, we talk about in the Highway Patrol not going to communities when we need something. I've been asking different civic organizations since I became colonel, help us recruit. It's not just on us. The community has to be willing to engage. And with everything that's happened with this profession over the course of the last 2+ years, there are less people willing to take on the responsibility. When you start talking police reform and you talk all of the things, those are all things that people compartmentalize, and there may be people that are on the cusp of wanting to join, but through peer pressure or through maybe misguided beliefs about the profession, don't understand that there are a multitude of ways that you can contribute, especially growing up in the inner city. It's something that's in my DNA, and when we are engaged with the community, our troops are at their best. There are troopers that do stuff every day that amaze me that the public has no idea. We have a very robust social media program. Our public affairs unit is engaged with telling those stories so that people understand there is another side to this. And most of them don't want credit. They don't want people to know that they're doing it because they don't want to be perceived as being glory hounds. They're out doing great things in the community.
And Colonel, you said police reform. So we received some questions as well from the audience about defunding the police. Is that synonymous with police reform? And if we can just hear from each of you, what is your initial reaction when you hear people ask to defund the police or call for reform?
I don't love that word reform because there's a connotation that it's broken. There are a lot of things organizationally that I know within the Highway Patrol we've been on the cusp and front line of dealing with. And I can tell you proudly enough that as the protests and demonstrations waged over the course of the last year and a half or so, we have troopers stationed at the State House that were there night and day. Not once did we place our hands on any citizen, whether they were involved in social or civil unrest, peaceful demonstrations, and sometimes outright rioting. Our troopers didn't lay hands on one person. And that is because we teach restraint and we teach how to deal with issues that are dynamic. And I can tell you, Columbus Police Division was instrumental that first night. And it's not a proud day for the city. It's not a proud day for us because, no one wants to see damage and destruction. And I think that it was a fever pitch and a boil and again, a time to have courageous conversations about what we can do collectively to lead, guide, direct, and provide an opportunity for people to feel that they have the support of the police departments and the agencies that represent them, but that we also have the support of the community to go out and make sure that we're all taking care of things collectively.
When I think about police reform, I don't necessarily think of it as a bad word. I would say that I think it's important for all agencies nationwide to ensure that we are doing 21st century policing. Community policing has to be at the forefront. We can't do this alone. You're not going to arrest your way out of any situation. Crime prevention has to be on the forefront of everyone's mind. And I'll just be honest with you. I, even now, will be driving down the road, and when one of your people get behind me, it makes me nervous. And it shouldn't be like that, right? So we shouldn't feel that feeling of fear like we talk about. But I do get nervous. I don't know why. I just do. So I think that as we move forward, it's important for us to have more community engagement, more community relations, more conversations so that people are comfortable with their respective law enforcement agencies. So I don't think of it so much as reform or defunding because that's not the answer. Taking money away from the police, not the answer. However, can we do things differently? Absolutely. One of the things that we talk about and one of the things that we're doing is we have our mobile crisis response. So instead of sending officers when someone is having a mental health crisis, now we partner with social workers. So we have social workers on board so we get the right response. So it's not always about law enforcement. It's not always about sending someone in to do some sort of enforcement action, but actually making sure that our residents get the help that they need. So we can spend more money doing things like that. We can spend more money on community engagement, but I think defunding is not the right answer. We have to pour into our law enforcement agencies. We have to make sure that we have the right amount of money to do the things that we need to do, but we also have to make sure that we're doing the things that are going to be positive for our community.
So there has been a lot of conversation about reimagining policing, defunding policing. And when I think about those concepts, I think about that there is no other profession that at any given time can legally take someone's freedom, or if need be, in worst case scenario, take someone's life. Instead of defunding the police, I think that money should be invested in training. Training, making sure that all law enforcement agencies across the board receive that type of training that if it's related to intervention, de-escalation, make that the starting point, that funding is there for all agencies. When you start saying, I know there's been a call a lot to say, can a social worker respond? Absolutely. There's some cases that would be appropriate for a social worker to respond. But when you come to the end of the day, no matter where you live, is it in a suburb, or is it the city of Columbus, wherever your neighborhood, everyone wants to be safe. And everyone wants to be treated with respect. And so before we start saying, let's defund or take away that money, let's figure out how to get law enforcement agencies the resources that they need to do their job. Now, along with that also comes accountability and transparency, and that falls on all three of our shoulders for leaders of our agency. And I think you have to keep that in mind before we start saying, let's defund and reimagine.
So Chief Bryant, let's go back to what you said, which was very interesting. I think if we're being honest, you are definitely not alone when you say when a police officer, whether it's Highway Patrol or CPD, for those of us who are here in Columbus, when you see that officer get over behind you, that there's this initial reaction of fear. What advice do you have? What do you do when you see a Highway Patrol come behind you and it's like, oh my goodness?
Well, after I check my speed, No, but honestly, that's the point of having these conversations, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, because it has to come to a point where we have to trust. We have to have that trust that they're going to do the right thing, and we have to have the trust of each other, because I know that fear is just there for a moment. It's a fleeting moment, but I'm not alone. So how do we have these conversations and make sure that people know that the Ohio State Patrol, they're doing what they're supposed to do? That's conversations like this, community forums, and making sure that we are out there pushing our message, them seeing the leadership and knowing that we're holding our people accountable. Like I said, leadership starts from the top. So we're doing the right things. We're making sure that we tell people all the time, as long as you do the right things, I'm going to support you 100%. If you're doing the wrong things, I'm going to hold you accountable. And that's just the bottom line. So these conversations, ensuring that we're actually physically out there with our people, making sure that they're doing the right things and not just sitting in the ivory tower and policing, I call it, from afar. Because if we're not out there and we don't talk to our troops, if we're not talking to our leadership, our supervision, how do we really know what they need, or how do we really know what's going on?
Colonel, do you have that same sense of fear sometimes when an officer comes behind you, if you're honest?
Never. Never. I don't get stressed. I mean, it's the body's physiological response to that type of stimuli. I mean, that's normal. If you know you're not doing anything, chill. Chill. Stay in your lane, keep your hands at 10 and 2, and watch your speed. I'm just saying. I mean, and truthfully, that is something that over time, if I know I'm not doing anything, I'm not stressed about that. I am not stressed.
Like, I know I'm not doing anything. Am I the only one who feels like that in the room? I know I am not doing anything, right? I mean, I don't break the law. I'm a judge. I'm not doing anything ever. But I feel a certain kind of way, if I'm honest, when an officer pulls up behind me and I'm not speeding, I'm not doing anything. Have those fears, right?
Your Honor, let's think about it in the reverse. You're assuming that that officer's attention is directed at you. They're just trying to get off the interstate, or they're trying to change lanes. Now, if they follow you for 4 miles, then you got to be wondering, you know. But generally, yeah.
I have to admit, I too have that fear if I see the lights behind me. And I get really nervous when I see them do a U-turn.
We ought to be questioning some of these panelists up here to include Your Honor.
I'm just being honest. We're trying to have a transparent and open conversation. And I think some of the members of the audience agree with me, right? So what do we do? How do we really bridge this gap? And I think we have to first start at a point of honesty and saying, I'm not doing anything. But sometimes I'm the one I'll get off the highway if you come up behind me, just because I don't want any problems.
And I think, unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with things that we're seeing across the nation. It may not necessarily be anything that you're seeing in your respective community, but when you hear the stories and you hear everything that's going on, that's why it's important for us to be out there having these conversations. That's why it's important for us to be transparent, because people are, they have fear. Even if an officer can do something 100% right, they could be in the right. But if things have went wrong 9 times before, it's going to be very difficult for people to have that trust, that police legitimacy, So that's why we're having this conversation and we're talking about it. You may not feel it, but it's real.
I sound desensitized to that. That's not what I'm trying to convey. The bottom line for me is, we assume catchphrase for most, but we've been doing this stuff forever. Accountability. We are known to eat our own, if you ask troopers. We are second to none when it comes to making sure that our people act right, they portray the right image, but they follow our rules and regulations. And if they don't, then they have to be dealt with administratively. And that's a culture of understanding within the agency. Now, we're human, and we've got people that have done things that are surprising, but by and large, we toe the line and we take care of that business so that the community doesn't have to worry about whether or not they can trust us. And when we do citizen surveys that gauge how the community feels about us, they're overwhelmingly positive. because troopers go out and handle their business. And that's not to disparage any other agency. It's just a level of expectation. And it starts with my seat. And anybody, including Lieutenant Colonel Marla Gaskell, who is here, we are all engaged for the right reasons. And we understand it's not personal, it's business. And you have to run this like a business.
And can I just end that on that note? Thank you, Judge Stroud and panelists. This was wonderful. Can you please give it up for them? This was simply amazing. It allowed us to see chiefs or officers or people that wear the blue in real time and with real vision, and that they are human. So thank you for your time. Let me just give out, before I go any farther, Glenn McIntyre, thank you. Thank you for the constant Zoom calls and getting this, the logistics part. Thank you, Andrew Stout. Thank you, Alex Brown and team. Thank you to my dear Delilah Wooten here, who tech guru, appreciate you. I want to thank Tanya Dawson for everything. And then I also want to thank those of you, the audience, that came out to hear a view from the blue. Thank you to our moderator for stepping in. Please give it up for Judge Stroud in the absence of Dr. Godfrey. Our special panelists, the audience, and a special shout out to the Columbus Division of Police for your assistance and partnering with us, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Sigma Omega Chapter, in making this view from the blue real and relevant. I want to thank you all. It is our intent on tonight that the community has been enlightened and that we all can come closer together and build a community that we all can live in. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to bring up our president, Valerie Tarver, for the closing out and special presentations.
All right. Well, thanks again to everyone who came out. I want to thank our members of the Divine Nine who joined us in the audience this evening and who are online with us. And if I could get First Assistant Chief Lashana Potts to join us on stage. Lashana, we wanted to thank you on the heels of Women's History Month, and Black History is all the time because we are living history. We just wanted to say thank you for all that you do and for being one of the first and the finest in Columbus community. So thank you so much, and we greatly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Next, if I could get my sorority member, Chief Elaine Bryant, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Alpha Sigma Omega Chapter, to come forward. We want to thank you for being one of the first and the finest, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, a member of our community who's gotten in and served and made a measurable commitment and impact to our community. We get a lot of emails and communication, and I got an email earlier this evening saying from a community member who is not a member of our sorority, and said, can you just please make sure you thank her? Because I'm glad there's someone that my daughter can look up to, someone that she can pattern her life after here in the Columbus community. So thank you for being brave. Thank you. And we're going to present you with this lovely gift of pink roses. And with that, we'd also like to thank our panelists. We have a small token for each one of you. And Karen, I'm going to let you give this to them.
Sure, absolutely. I do want to thank you for giving your time. It's just, let me just share it because...
You need a microphone.
Microphone?
Yes.
Oh, well, would you open that, please? I just want to share it so that they can see what we are leaving them with. It is a paperweight. It's nice and heavy. Every day, I hope it is on your desk somewhere where you will see it's engraved, A View from the Blue. We certainly thank you for giving your time to us. Thank you. for stepping in. You can tell your friend that you have it. Listen, audience, thank you all for being here. We will be taking pictures. Divine Nine presidents and representatives, please do not leave. And then those of you, city council and so forth, do not leave. We would like to get some pictures. But thank you. This concludes A View from the Blue.